If you've ever felt trapped in a place that should feel like home, but instead breathes unease, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this story. Sometimes what we think is just a Haseki rough patch can spiral into something far darker and impossible to ignore. In the weeks following my college graduation, I found myself spiraling into such a nightmare, one that started with nothing more than a desperate search for affordable shelter and ended in a terrifying confrontation with the unseen. So before we dive into the chilling details of what happened in that apartment, if you find value in stories that grip your soul and twist your mind, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell right now to join this community and never miss a story that will keep you awake at night. Your support means more than you know and helps bring these eerie tales to life every week. When I walked across the stage 3 months after my final exam, clutching a piece of paper that represented years of sacrifice and nearly $70,000 of debt, it felt less like an achievement and more like a cruel joke. The graduation ceremony itself had been small and strangely silent. My parents had not flown in to witness it, leaving me to face that moment alone, the word communications boldly printed on my degree, suddenly sounding like the biggest sham I had ever invested in. The job market mocked my efforts, from interviews that ended with polite but crushing rejection citing lack of experience or frozen budgets, to the entry-level position I finally landed barely scraping minimum wage. The harsh truth was clear. My degree was useless, a heavy weight dragging me into a deeper financial pit. Funds that I had hoarded from part-time jobs throughout college dwindled rapidly. The bleak reality sank in as my trusty car morphed into an unwilling shelter, the back seat doubling as my bed in the sweltering summer nights, with cracked faux leather sticking uncomfortably to my skin each morning. Gym showers became my only source of cleanliness, and I folded my interview clothes on the seat beside me each day, a fragile beacon of hope in an otherwise deteriorating existence. The nearest affordable apartments were 2 hours away by bus from my job, a commute that would steal nearly 4 hours of every day, time that I couldn't afford to lose when I was already physically drained. The buses were often late or overcrowded, turning what little energy I had into exhaustion and despair. Just as I was beginning to accept this brutal routine, desperation opened my eyes to another option. A dilapidated building just 10 minutes from work, wedged between a broken laundromat and an abandoned pizza shop, offering rent so cheap it felt like a trick. The photos online highlighted every flaw: the faded paint, the cracked windows patched up with tape, the stained floors soft from trapped moisture. But I had nowhere else to turn. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford, and so I signed up to review the apartment the very next day. Meeting the landlord was like meeting a ghost of someone trapped in his own nervous fears. He was thin, his hands trembled slightly, and the sweat-damp collar of his shirt betrayed his unease. His greeting was brief and mumbled as he led me up cracked front steps and through a hallway filled with the sharp scent of bleach, failing miserably to mask something sour and deeply unpleasant. Each door along the way hung slightly off its hinges, and dark, suspicious patches clung to the ceiling like stains of unwelcome secrets. Upon reaching the third-floor apartment, he fumbled nervously with keys before opening the door to reveal an interior that must have been painted almost a decade ago, now peeling and yellowed like old sickness. The floors were stained, squishy in spots, where water had surely invaded, and the living room fan hung unevenly, sagging and spinning sluggishly, as if beaten down by time. The windows were cracked and taped. The kitchen was barren except for a dented mini-fridge shoved into a far corner. No furniture, no appliances, just a pitiful empty shell of a home. I wanted to flee then, to retreat back into my car and the suffocating safety it provided. But the threat of tickets, or worse, kept me rooted. I held my tongue while checking out the bedroom, a tiny room only large enough to squeeze in a mattress and a heap of regrets. When we arrived at the bathroom, the landlord paused, tracing the door frame with his fingertips and giving a stiff smile before uttering, "You should take a look at this." Inside was a small, narrow space coated in cheap linoleum tiles. A cracked mirror reflected the rust stains sprawling across the sink, and the toilet sat awkwardly uneven, as if the floor beneath had sunk silently. My attention landed last on the shower, a small cabin with frosted tempered glass walls clouded with age. A jagged crack crept across one glass panel near the drain, sealed over crudely with silicone caulk, a desperate and obvious patch job that screamed neglect. The landlord cleared his throat softly behind me but said no more. I nodded stiffly, faking interest in the rest of the bathroom, already having made my decision. I had nowhere else to go. Signing the lease that afternoon marked the beginning of a nightmare. That night, the apartment was alive with muffled voices and distant door slams. As I opened my apartment door, it scraped raspily against the floor while dust clouds puffed up where my duffel bag hit the worn floorboards. I didn't unpack. Instead, I dropped the bag and stumbled straight to the bathroom to shower, pulling my shirt over my head in one smooth motion. The bathroom floor was cold and unforgiving beneath my bare feet as I twisted the shower knob, bracing myself for the worst, brown water or no water at all. But a weak stream emerged. Lukewarm, barely comforting water streaked over my skin, washing away days of grime and fatigue. The cracked glass patch caught my eye again, but I forced it from my mind. Leaning back, eyes closed, I let the sound of the water drown out the noise of my miserable life. But then came the noise. At first, faint, easily dismissed as plumbing, but it quickly became clearer and terrifyingly real. The frantic, heavy shuffling of something dragging on the bathroom floor, followed by broken waves of screaming. My eyes snapped open, and I stumbled backward, skin slamming hard against the shower wall as the cries cut off abruptly. Silence swallowed the room save for the water pattering against plastic and the pounding of my heart. No shadows lurked, no rattling handles, no ghostly shapes in the steamed mirror, just an eerie stillness. I laughed nervously, blaming stress, exhaustion, or something I'd read on the internet. A buried Reddit thread told of strange noises in the shower when eyes were closed too long, and so I clung to that thread of sanity. The next day, returning home from a brutal shift where my boss verbally tore me apart in front of everyone, I sought refuge in that cursed shower again. The moment I twisted the knob and shower spray kissed my skin, the scream came, tearing the air apart once more, accompanied by a thud so loud I imagined explosions. My shampoo bottle toppled, spinning wildly on the wet floor, and panic seized me. I searched for the source of the chaos, investigating upstairs, knocking on the door, waiting, knocking louder, but no one answered. A voice behind me led to Mrs. Cartwright, a kind-faced elderly woman with white hair and glasses who assured me the upstairs unit was empty. Her soft smile held hints of loneliness and mystery. The noise was coming from somewhere else, something else. I spent days turning the terror over in my mind, noticing the pattern. The noises only ever came when I closed my eyes. This strange rule became my only clue, and eventually, my next test. Closing my eyes deliberately in that shower unleashed the same hellish cacophony of screams and heavy footsteps. A sudden icy touch brushed my back, followed by searing pain as sharp claws raked my skin. I screamed and stumbled, scrambling out onto the cold floor where the mirroring horror was confirmed. Deep, angry scratches stretched across my back, bleeding and fresh. Explanations failed me. The place was haunted in a way I'd never imagined. I did not sleep that night, dread caging me every time my eyelids drooped. Morning revealed reality through the blunt lens of financial ruin. My bank balance reading $13.73, a cruel reminder that eviction was not far off. Scouring the internet for an affordable exorcism was a joke, expensive, untrustworthy, and completely out of reach. Days blended together in a haze of work, avoidance, and creeping filth. I stopped showering, and it showed. My boss mentioned hygiene pointedly during meetings. Colleagues recoiled from the smell that clung to me like a second skin. I was trapped in a body that was falling apart, living in a place that wanted to consume me. Then, unexpectedly, an old friend from college reached out on social media, reigniting faint sparks of human connection. Allison's message was a beacon of hope, offering a chance to step back into society, to remember who I once was. But the thought of facing her without a shower, without clean clothes, and smelling like decay made me almost pull back. Summoning the courage, I promised myself to face the cursed shower one more time, eyes wide open, refusing to close them. For a moment, the water was my friend, soothing and warm. But then the temperature plunged. The cabin shook violently as screaming surrounded me. The water morphed into ice, and the shower became a prison. Hair, teeth, and strange debris filled the rising water that climbed toward my waist as breathless terror spread through my body. Ghostly hands pressed from the other side of the cracked glass, attempting to trap me inside. Heart pounding, I fought back with everything I had, smashing the glass with my fists and knees until it shattered, unleashing a flood that nearly drowned me. Soaked and shaking, I escaped the bathroom, fleeing the haunted cell that had tried to consume me. The next day, knowing I couldn't survive another night, I reached out to Mrs. Cartwright and offered help in exchange for the simple kindness of being able to use her bathroom. She accepted with a smile that warmed even my shattered soul. Slowly, in her gentle company, I reclaimed some semblance of normalcy while the haunted apartment faded into the background of my life. I placed curtains to hide the shattered shower and vowed to never return to that obliterated slice of my nightmare. The landlord remained uninformed, as I suspected he had known all along about the horrors behind the walls, but chose silence. And in that I found a bitter companionship to my own silence as I moved forward. This story is a grim reminder that sometimes our struggles are more than just what we see on the surface. Sometimes they claw at us from the shadows, waiting for one moment to break free.